My name is Leon Valdry. I'm a native of Louisiana. My parents had 8 kids, 5 boys and 3 girls. All of us were born and raised on the same property in Bush, Louisiana, 15 miles west of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was raised on a farm. My father was a school teacher, and we had the only grocery store in my area. My parents were beautiful people. They always encouraged me to go to school and be the best. My dad was handsome, or still is. He was always friendly, good, and personality. It's not about the money, it's about what you're doing for the people.
Leon Valdry.
I came from the smallest parish. And when I went to grade school, quite natural, the school was segregated. I went to high school, it was segregated. But going to high school, I was very lucky. It was segregated, but the year I entered high school, we had a high school. Thank God. I was the first class. Southern was my only choice because it was not very far from my hometown, and I heard so much about Southern, and the other universities didn't appeal to me. It was a great experience. I can trace everything back to Southern because it was the stepping stone in my life.
Southern University helped my father to become the man that he is.
Upon graduation, I didn't work in Louisiana. I came to California the day after commencement exercise. My mother was originally born in Missouri, and she moved out to Los Angeles to become a nurse. So we just got the ball on roll. My mother, Doris Valdry, had the same work ethic as my father. They were always go-getters. They were always trying to get to the next level and accomplish their goals.
This is one of the things my father told me about my mother. He said, one of the things I loved about your mother is we both wanted the same thing. And that was to succeed in life and have a good life.
To them, family came first, whether it was their own nuclear family or their brothers and sisters and their parents. They always had a positive outlook on life no matter what was going on. They chose each other well.
Leon and Doris and the kids came here in 1972, and Leon has really been the biggest contributor to this parish. So he is #1 giver in the history of our church.
My wife thought it was great that we gave back because it's a way of life to help other people. We're all here to help people.
My dad says that our greatest role on this earth is to help each other. He means that. I've seen that throughout his experienced it. My sister and I have both experienced it.
He'd say, you should always help others when you can. If you have the ability to help someone, you should.
And what I love about Leon is he's so humble, so unassuming. You never know it. He passes out the worship aids every Sunday. He takes up the collection. He's just a really humble man. He's the real deal. We have a lot of people that like to tell you their accomplishments and they're very boastful. Leon's the opposite. He's very humble.
We're not braggadocious people. We're just regular people. And the most greatest goals I can ever achieve, reaching back, helping people, bringing people along. It's not about the money. It's about what you're doing for the people.
Leon Valdry, for over 40 years, he has been the greatest contributor to this parish. Generous guy. When I first came, I knew nothing about him. Why? He's humble. Humble, quiet. And recently, he gave a very generous donation to his alma mater, Southern University, located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And rightly so, they are erecting the Valdry Center for Philanthropy. And it's going to hopefully inspire young people to give back, to not forget where you've come from, and to think of the less fortunate. And that's why I'm so proud of Leon. Again, he's been so generous to his university, to his parish, all these other charitable causes. He's a great philanthropist, and he never talks about it.
I want people to know that my dad was really a legend before he was even a legend. He's always been the same. Whether he was a little boy doing odd jobs, swimming in the bayou, to being an excellent student at the university, to being an engineer in Los Angeles when he worked at a company that people actually cried when he left to start his own real estate business. And even today, giving back the way that he is, and now he's going to have his name actually on the university school. So it's just amazing.
Leon Edward Valdry, he's a great father. He teaches others how to function in the community, how to give back, how to teach, how to become the person that you were meant to be, and then reach back and help others do the same.
I want people to say about Leon Valdry, he came here and he did more than eat his lunch. He fulfilled a need for being on planet Earth, help human nature. We were put on planet Earth to do things. That's my goal of helping the people. Welcome to Southern University, the Valdry Center.
I'm Warren W. Valdry, graduate of Southern University, class of 1959. I grew up in a little place called Bush, Louisiana, and was a great place to grow up. A country boy, and I understood a lot about bees, but the eyes were always to get an education because it improves the life of yourself and others. My father's name was Leon Valdry Sr., and my mother's name was Mary Jacob Valdry. I grew up with 8 brothers and sisters. I kind of grew up pretty fast because I was kind of in the middle. I was a 7th child and a boy. And so I guess they expected great things of me, and I don't think I let too many of them down. On my way to church on Saturday morning, as a young boy, about 5 years of age, I would see hundreds of people chopping sugarcane. There was one man on a horse. He was a white man. And he had a shotgun across his lap and a bullwhip on the side of the horse. And I just, as a child, I didn't understand why so many of those people were working out there in the field, and they wasn't dressed very well. It wasn't a very beautiful sight.
My name is Leon Valdry. I'm a native of Louisiana. My parents had 8 kids, 5 boys and 3 girls. All of us were born and raised on the same property in Bush, Louisiana, 15 miles west of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was raised on a farm. My father was a school teacher, and we had the only grocery store in my area. My parents were beautiful people. They always encouraged me to go to school and be the best.
My dad was handsome, or still is. He was always friendly, go-getter, had a lot of personality.
There was one story I heard.
Begin. I hope you all enjoyed the brief video of the Valdry family that this building is named after. And thanks to them, we are here in the Valdry Center for Philanthropy at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I am Terry Braden, Director of Programs. So again, welcome and thank you. Mr. Harrell?
Good morning, everyone. I'll say that again. Good morning. All right. Well, welcome to the Valdry Center for Philanthropy. We're really happy to have you here and join us this morning. I'm going to give you some quick background on how this program came to be. In 2017, the university identified a need to educate both our volunteers and our students on how philanthropy really works. And so we decided to run a parallel course and ask all of our constituents to get re-engaged and make investments at the university, as well as educate those constituents on how we can use those investments to impact society in a meaningful way. We then reached out to the Kellogg Foundation, who helped us to develop a programming model for this work, and then align that with an alum and a donor or a benefactor who thought this was very important in Leon Edward Valdry. And then we launched the programming for this center. In 2019, we opened the doors here to start the programming, and then went to begin developing partnerships with strategic organizations that would help us, proliferate this work. And one of those organizations was the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And we met with Dr. Harry Williams in 2020, right in the height of the pandemic in Washington, D.C., and asked him and his organization to support this work. So we're really excited about our lecture and seminar series, which you are taking part in today. We have 4 other sessions scheduled throughout the course of this academic year, and we're looking forward to having you participate in those, but we are most excited about our guest today. So I'll give you a brief introduction on Dr. Williams. Harry Williams serves as the president and CEO of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, the nation's largest organization exclusively representing the Black college community. Thurgood Marshall's 47 member schools are America's publicly supported historically Black colleges and universities and predominantly Black institutions, educating nearly 300,000 students. Under Dr. Williams' leadership as president and CEO, Thurgood Marshall has created innovative partnerships and increased the organization's stability and advanced bipartisan HBCU support. As a former president, Dr. Williams, former president of Delaware State University, Dr. Williams leveraged his relationships with other HBCU presidents to increase corporations and cooperation between Thurgood Marshall member schools, creating supportive networks amongst HBCUs, leaders, providing a platform for sharing best practices amongst those schools. We are excited to have Dr. Williams here today to share with you on how we can increase our capacity in communities of color and grow our philanthropic support. At this time, I'd like you to join me in welcoming Dr. Harry Williams, President and CEO of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund.
Good morning. Thank you, Brother Al, for that very generous introduction. I am delighted to be with you here today, and I think I heard him say lecture, and I guess that means I'm going to do some teaching, I guess. But we're going to do some interacting. So this is going to be not me talking at you, but it's going to be participation, because it's important for us all to learn from each other. I know that the foundation is represented here, and I know that members of the foundation have a variety of backgrounds and experiences that can enlighten everybody in here. So I'm going to pose some questions, and I want you to either agree with me or disagree, and you can focus on the moment that we're in right now. And when Terry invited me to come, she wanted me to have a title of the lecture, and I said to her, I'll think about it. And she said, well, I need for you to send me something in writing. So I told her that I did a talk not too long ago about what is happening currently for HBCUs as it relates to philanthropy in the United States of America. And I said to her that the title of this lecture will be, is it a movement or is it a moment? Is this a movement or is it a moment? And the reason why I come up with that title is because we are experiencing something in this country that we've never seen before in terms of the type of finances, the type of funds that's coming to HBCUs. A record amount of resources coming from the federal government, from the state government, from the philanthropic community. And a lot of this, as you all may know, started with the unfortunate incident of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, when this country said, hey, looking and putting a spotlight on our community and seeing all of the inequities that still exist in our community, and looking at ways to address those inequities, people focus in on the positive things that's happening in our community, and it's our universities. HBCUs have always been the answer to solving major problems for this country and for our community. And so unprecedented resources have been coming into our community. And then you put on top of that the recent pandemic that we went through, as Al stated when he reached out to me in 2020, the pandemic that just hit. We didn't have any knowledge of what was happening. So he jumped on a plane, flew to Washington, D.C. We didn't have masks back then. We didn't have any of those things, but we signed this agreement at that time because it was important for us to do that. And so I want to set it up this way. But before I do that, I think it's important for you to have an understanding of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund and the history of the fund and the purpose of the fund. So I'm going to take a brief minute or so to kind of give you an overview of the fund and where we are currently right now and our role in this space. And then I want to go into that question, and I have some examples of first programs and funding that we have never seen before, and we're seeing it now, and I think it's going to continue. Well, first, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund was founded 37 years ago. Our founder, Dr. N. Joyce Payne, had this bold and audacious vision to say, we need to have a fund that would be dedicated exclusively to serving public, historically Black colleges and universities. And the reason why she said public was because the private HBCUs had UNCF, United Negro College Fund, was there to support. It's the oldest organization for scholarships for Black students attending private schools. But the public schools did not have an advocacy group that would be in Washington, would focus on raising funds to support students, and also focus on raising connections in corporate America. And so Dr. Payne had this vision, and she said that she wanted to have this to focus exclusively on HBCUs. And at the time, she was working with an organization called APLU. And APLU represented the land grant colleges. And at that time, there were 1890 land grants. Southern University was part of that land grant, still part of the land grant community. And she coordinated the initial meeting. There was a president, President Humphreys from FAMU was part of the initial discussion about this. And they came together and wanted to decide, they needed to decide on a name for the fund. And Dr. Payne thought about the first African-American Supreme Court Justice, Justice Marshall. But she didn't have a relationship with Justice Marshall, but someone within the group had a connection to get to Justice Marshall. And so she was able to get a meeting with Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. And in this meeting, she made this pitch, and this is a true story. She actually went to the Supreme Court, and you could actually go to the Supreme Court without a lot of security back then. You can just walk up there. And Justice Marshall accepted a meeting with her. And in that meeting, she made this pitch about why we need an organization that would focus exclusively on the public, historically Black colleges and universities. And she reminded Justice Marshall that he graduated from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, where he attended undergrad school, and that's a public HBCU in Pennsylvania. And she also reminded him of the fact that over 90% of our students who attend historically Black colleges and universities are there and they have financial challenges, meaning that they cannot afford to continue because of economic situation that might be in their household. And she said, we need a scholarship fund that would help remove the barriers. And she was really interested in trying to close the wealth gap between African Americans and whites, more specifically because knowing that a college degree will add to helping to enhance your net worth. So Justice Marshall heard the conversation and he said, why should I do this? And she again reminded him that he graduated from Lincoln and then he went on to Howard University and graduated from law school, and the rest is history. And he paused, and those of you who may have read about Justice Marshall or had an opportunity to hear him on TV, he was kind of grumpy and he just said, I'll do it. And he called his secretary in to the office, and he said, one caveat: you can use my name, you can use my likeness, you can use it to raise funds, to open doors, to get into corporate America, but I'm not going to charge you one dime for it. I'm not going to charge you one dime, and I'm going to put that in writing. And whatever you raise will go to supporting Black students attending the HBCUs. That was significant. That was very significant. And he signed the letter. I have a copy of the letter on my desk with his signature, giving us the rights and privileges to use his name and likeness to raise funds. So fast forward, 37 years later, by using his name and likeness, we've been able to raise $500 billion, $500 million, $500 million by using his name. And we're still using his name and his likeness to gain access to some of the top corporations in the world because of what he stood for and what he represented. So that the fund has done an incredible job of connecting students to some of the top Fortune 100 companies in the world. And because of that, we have been able to create opportunities for students and students to be able to walk into some of the top companies by using Justice Marshall's name. So the fund has grown significantly in terms of it started out as the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund with about 10 people. Now we have over 100 full-time people working all over the United States, supporting students, supporting our universities because of this big, bold, and audacious vision of Dr. Joyce Payne. So we get up every single day and we have three major areas that we focus in on. Three. One, advocacy in Washington, D.C. We have a full team that's in Washington, and that's all they do. They're up on the Hill building relationships. And it's very important for us, for you to understand, we are bipartisan. We don't pick a side. We're right down the middle because everybody needs an education. The R's and the D's and the I's, everybody needs an education. So when we never know who's going to be in that seat, so you got to have a bipartisan approach to this. So that's our lane. We also, we focus on advocacy, and we focus on raising scholarship dollars because that's still the number one reason why students don't graduate, is because of finance. We just sent 2 scholarships to one of our member schools just yesterday because students needed $5,000, $10,000 to close the gap. And if they didn't get the 10,000, they're gonna drop out of school, et cetera, et cetera. I know you know the story. I know you've heard it. We get it all the time, but it's real. It is real in terms of for students in this day and age. We still serve a large percentage of our students are on financial aid. So one of our strong push in Washington is to double the Pell Grant. That's a big initiative, a real big initiative, because we know that entitlement program has played a critical role in supporting our students in our community. So that's a real big push. And then our third focus centers around working with some of the top 100 companies in the world. Companies like Apple, Novartis, Medtronic, introducing our students to these global world companies and providing them with access to these leaders. Just got a call here recently. One of our partners just offered a young man, Chevron. I know y'all work with Chevron. Just got an offer starting out, and I wish I had started out with this as an undergrad, $100,000 plus a signing bonus. Now, how many would love that when you're 22 years old? Think about that. And so we make sure that our students have access to those opportunities. And we do it unapologetically. And we do it in a way that is very clear in terms of who we represent and why we represent, because we know that our students they're very talented. And it's the one thing about Justice Marshall was removing barriers and opening doors and allowing you to walk through those doors that you have someone else helping you along the way. So part of that's part of our goal. So what we have experienced, as I stated, with the pandemic, with the unfortunate incident with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, the spotlight on HBCUs, and it has generated a lot of positive attention, a lot more. And we've looked into this. As stated, I was president of Delaware State for 8 years, and I know the challenges that HBCU presidents have to go through every day in representing their institution and representing it not only in the community, but outside externally. So part of our job is to put that national spotlight on our HBCUs. So when I first started at TMCF 6 years ago, my very first responsibility was to get to know the key players in Washington that are decision makers, people who are on the appropriation committee, people on both sides of the House. So we would go up on Capitol Hill and they would set up meetings with me to meet with senators and representatives. And this was 6 years ago. And we would have to go in, I'll never forget meeting with Senator Patty Murray from Washington State. And we would have to take 45 minutes to explain to her staff what is an HBCU. Had to explain that to a group of staffers who said, this is my first time hearing about HBCUs. Well, you're in Washington State. I can see that because there are no HBCUs in Washington State. But as you can imagine, taking the time to go through that process of explaining to people, and that's what we were doing, a lot of that. Then fast forward, we go into the pandemic, and we go into Washington, and we meet with both sides, and we make a case that if we don't get direct funding to our schools, exclusively HBCUs, and we did it with UNCF, NAFIO, and TMCF. And we led the charge to make a case for HBCUs to get a set aside. And I said it in the room, and I used the B word for the first time. And I'll never forget, Senator Tim Scott was right beside me. He said, "Oh, you throwing the B word around here?" I said, our institutions deserve this. And I said, we can use $1 billion that will support 101 HBCUs in a significant way. And I said, we've never done that before. Don't mean you can't do it. So at the end of the day, when the pandemic hit, members of Congress went in session and they came out and we got an unprecedented amount of dollars. And that has continued into this day. And then you fast forward to the President of the United States currently right now, which is very interesting. If you look at the politics of this, of where we are, President Biden, and this is, and you can follow this. As I stated, I was in Delaware, so he was this U.S. Senator there, and he came to our campus on many occasions. And his current president of the Board of Advisors is the president of Delaware State, but he was a president of the United States speechwriter. See the connections? Now he's the president of the Board of Advisors for HBCUs. Because we, at Thurgood Marshall, we sent a letter to the president saying, appoint him as the president of the Board of Advisors. Because you need someone in the room who understands clearly what you're all about. So we go through the process. And now we have a president, first time ever, a president of the United States, first time ever, who is not afraid to say, I support HBCUs, who has put it in his remarks on the night that he won in Wilmington, Delaware. He stood up and said to the whole entire audience, you can go back and find this on YouTube. And he said, the HBCU community, the Black community, you had my back and I got your back. And he said that. And we remind him of that. We remind his staff of that, of those statements. So we remind him because we said that should translate into dollars. And what I can say to you unequivocally, that since this particular president and this administration has been in, we have received, HBCUs have received over $7 billion of new money. This is not old money, $7 billion of new money. 3.6 billion came from the American Rescue Plan, 1.6 billion came from the Capital Finance Relief Plan, 1.7 billion came to expand academic programs, $1.7 billion. And this is still happening. This is still happening. We just sent, never happened before in this country. That's why I say, is this a moment or is this a movement? Never, and we say it every day. We get up and we talk about this. We sent a letter from the Secretary of Agriculture, Vilsack. We met with him, and we met with the Secretary of Education. And we said that 1890s have been underfunded in terms of revenue going to these institutions. Southern University is part of that. There at Southern University had been underfunded from 1987, did a study from 1987 to 2021, and said HBCUs have been underfunded by $12.1 billion. That's just from 1987 to 2020. This initial assessment was done by Forbes magazine, by Arthur. You can Google it. She did I spent hours with her talking about the importance of getting this message out and to reminding people that the 1890s have always been underfunded. The 1862s, LSU down the road, have always been fully funded. Look at that campus, a fully funded campus that's got reoccurring revenue coming in versus an underfunded campus with no reoccurring revenue coming in. That's a big difference in comparison. That's true and that's real. And we know that out of that $12.1 billion, Southern University here has been underfunded by over $1 billion from the state of Louisiana. So for the first time ever, we challenged, and the President of the United States supported this, that the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of Education, we sent 16 letters to 16 governors talking about the underfunding and putting pressure on these governors and these legislators, and to remind them of their responsibility to support these institutions. And because of that pressure we used a roadmap from Tennessee State. State Legislator Harold Ford, who's a member of one of our advisory board. He's a pastor of a large church in Nashville. He went to a Republican governor and was able to get them to see that they had underfunded Tennessee State by $577 million. And they are now talking about that in terms of how they're going back and forth about giving those dollars. So you can imagine if you get $1 billion on this campus right now, just for infrastructure, what would it do for this campus? What would it do for this community? So that's why it's so important that we keep that pressure. All of you who have connections with state legislators, keep reminding them. I was in Chicago just here recently at Chicago State, met with the president. Chicago State is part of our network of schools. And in the state of Illinois, they have seen in the last 20 years, a 57% decline of Black students in the state of Illinois going to college. A decline. And we're trying to turn, and I said that's an opportunity for us to turn the tables on that because of the inequities that exist, not only in Illinois, but all over. And a lot of it ties directly to revenue. It ties directly to economics. And so therefore, that's why it's important to get these resources and to remind people. Same thing in the state of Georgia. In the state of Georgia, they have just put together, we were there here recently, supporting, they have 3 HBCUs there public, and the Black Caucus, they put together a committee, a HBCU task force, that's going to be, and same thing in Illinois. I challenged them to do this because you have to keep this front and center at all times. They owe this to us. It's not a gift. It's not a charity. It's part of their responsibility. And when you have to remind them, that's part of this time for us. So as I stated, history was made here recently. First time ever. A university research center, it's called a UARC, was the Air Force, the Secretary of Defense, Austin, went on the campus of Howard University, announced a $90 million research center. First time ever an HBCU has ever received that. And 7 HBCUs will be a part of that center. $90 million. Out of that $90 million, $12 million will go directly to Howard University to set that center up. Never happened before. The Department of Commerce announced, first time ever, $175 million to help with infrastructure. Southern University received $3 million of that in terms of helping you set up. The Law Center got some of it, in addition to Southern University at New Orleans. We've never gotten funds from the Commerce Center like that. Department of Transportation, first time ever, setting up a program, $435 million, HBCUs benefiting from it. Department of Energy, first time ever, set up a program that's going to support HBCUs. We are pushing really, really hard now, and Southern is part of this system, to get the first HBCU to have the Research 1 status. And when you have the Research 1 status, that's going to allow you to get more federal dollars coming in. Southern University is a Research 2 institution. All of our HBCUs currently are Research 2s. The one that's closest to getting the Research 1 status is Howard University in Washington, D.C. And Howard's been pushing really hard to get that status. They had that status in 1987. They were the only one, but they lost it because they didn't get the number of PhD students graduating in programs. We've been working with the Carnegie classification that determines the category of institutions. And they have their rules in place that blocks institutions don't have certain PhD programs in the humanities. And a lot of our HBCUs don't have PhDs in the humanities. So therefore, that's a blocker. So we were able to negotiate with them, and they're going to announce this, that they're removing that blocker. And by removing that, that's going to allow our schools to get this. And the reason why, because when you have that Research 1 status, you can get more revenue coming into your institution, more cash coming into this institution. Howard University last year set a record, and they had a goal of by 2024 to have $100 million of grants and contracts coming to their university. They closed out the year this year with $122 million from the federal government. That's a record. We've never seen those dollars before coming to our campuses. North Carolina A&T had a record year of research dollars, over $97 million going to their campuses. Morgan State had a record year of research dollars, close to $80 million of research dollars. We have never, ever seen this type of revenue coming into our institutions. And the reason why is because people understand the importance of these institutions and what they have done for this country and the value of these institutions and our opportunity. We're part of a big initiative that we just announced with Blue Meridian Partners, where they have invested $124 million into supporting all 100 HBCUs and helping to build out infrastructure and build out programs in place that will allow them to thrive in a way that they've never been able to thrive before. We have a bold and audacious goal that we want to see in the next 5 years, more than 90,000 new Black students coming to HBCUs. 90,000. And when we put that number out there, people say, "Are you crazy?" I said, no. 90,000 new African American, currently right now taking the PBIs and the HBCUs, we have over 300,000 students attending. And what we've pitched to the philanthropic community to get that 124 was that when you invest in HBCUs, you are investing in the future. You are investing in the best. So when you make those investments, those strategic investments, it's going to play a major return on that. You're going to see a major return on that investment. So part of this focus is to help build infrastructure. Some of the challenges that we have on our campuses centers around capacity, having enough people to do the work that needs to be done. I know you've heard that. I can't get someone to pick up the phone. I can't get someone to return my phone call. Having to build that capacity. So part of this plan is to help get capacity, expand that strategically on those campuses that are engaged. It's called the Transformation Project, which we believe that by making these investments, that we have talked to partners, that they will double down on their investment in HBCUs when they see the leadership responding to this. When you hear about the resources that's coming in to these institutions. So part of our movement is to consistently remind people of what these universities have done for this country as it relates to the community and building the community up. So in addition to that, we have seen over $500 million new dollars coming to HBCUs from strategic philanthropic individuals. Mackenzie Scott, for example, gave $544 million to about 24 HBCUs. And this is something that was a game changer in this giving with Mackenzie Scott, and what people don't want to talk about, but we talk about it. When Mackenzie Scott gave $500 million to our HBCUs, when she gave those, it's called trust philanthropy. Trust philanthropy is, I trust you to take these dollars and use it to the benefit of your community without a lot of restrictions on it. So she provided unrestricted dollars to 24 HBCUs. And this is the kicker. And I talked to the presidents that have been the beneficial, A&T, of those dollars. Prairie View got $50 million. That they only have to do 3 reports on what they're doing with those dollars. And the report has got to be 1 page, double space. You what I just said? 1 page, double space, and not a lot of data in it. That means I trust you. I trust you. That's unheard of. That's unheard of. In terms of someone saying, because they want to look, you get $2 million from someone, they want to look at every book, every dime, everything that you're giving, and why you're giving it. And then she said, I don't want you calling me. I got one person that you're going to communicate with, and you're going to send this in on this date. And we're not going to follow up. And then at the end of the 3rd year, we're done communicating. That's significant. And when I share that with Kresge and Lumina and other foundations, they just shake their heads. I said, we're here begging you for $1 million for a program, and then we got to spend all of our time doing all the effort to prove to you what we've done with those dollars. When you know the best person who can make those decisions are the people who are running these institutions. And that's what we have said time and time again to these communities. So what I have also noticed, and what we're seeing, the recent Supreme Court decision that's as it relates to affirmative action. I've been asked that question, how will that impact philanthropy in this country? And I said to the people, and we've talked about this decision was focused, it was a narrowly focused decision that focused on admissions to some of the so-called elite institutions in this country, the Ivy League schools and some of the elite public institutions that have, University of Michigan, et cetera. Majority of institutions not gonna have an impact. But what we are anticipating is that this decision is a racist decision, because it's going to impact blacks who are interested in going to those institutions. And the number of students who are currently black students attending the Ivies is about 8,000 of those. So you take that, that's a small number of students that potentially could be impacted. But those students still will get into those those institutions. But what we're saying and what we're seeing is a significant increase in HBCUs. And what we're telling our representatives and senators, that our campuses, in order to be prepared for this potential increase, we need to double down in the support and building the infrastructure on these campuses, and helping with housing, helping with facilities, helping with computer labs. We need those funds immediately if we're going to not allow a generation of students to get the benefit of HBCUs. What we have seen, and what before this decision, we've already seen that increase in interest in HBCUs. Morgan State president announced that they had over 25,000 applications. A&T had close to 35,000 applications last year. Howard University had over 30,000 applications. For their medical school, Howard University had 15,000 people to apply for 112 slots. So the demand is there. And this is our time to take full advantage of where we are. And so what we are also seeing in this space is corporate America. As I stated, we have worked closely with some of the top CEOs in the country. And what they are interested in, to be very clear, they're looking for talent. They're looking for diverse talent. They're looking for African American talent. And they tell those corporations are very clear on what they're looking for when they come to the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. When we set up a partnership with a Medtronic and they make investments in providing internship opportunities, we make it very clear that our students need these paid internships, and also they need to make sure that they have the facilities so when they go to San Jose, they don't have to pay $3,000 a month to live in an apartment, that they cover those expenses for the students. Because a lot of our students don't have that extra cash to go out to do an internship in Silicon Valley. So part of our job and part of our responsibility is to remind corporate America of this. And what we are seeing and what we are hearing from our partners, that they are going to double down in their support. Yes, there are some corporations that are nervous about the Supreme Court decision, and those who are nervous will be the ones who aren't going to do anything anyway. And the ones who are going to work, they're going to double down in their support. And that's what we've been hearing. That's what we've heard from the top attorneys representing some of our partners. And then we also hear the other side of it. But again, as I stated, this is a movement. And this is our time to focus on how we're going to continue to leverage our institution in a very strategic way. I am probably more excited now than I've ever been in terms of the opportunities for our schools to get the resources that they deserve, and for the commitment that I'm hearing that people are making for supporting HBCUs. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this opportunity to have this conversation with you. And I wanted to just to put those nuggets out there. And if some of you disagree with what I just said, just tell me. Tell you're wrong. We're not going to get any more money. And I'll just listen to you and walk off the stage. So at this time, what I want to do is open the floor for any questions, any comments about the things that I've just stated.
Well, let's give Dr. Williams a round of applause for his talk this morning. We really appreciate the work that Harry and the fund are doing, and want to open up the floor for any questions that you may have at this time. So we have two microphones, so Terry in the back, so raise your hand up high. Don't be shy.
Good morning. Thank you for.
And if you could state your name and your relationship with the university, that would be helpful as well. Yes, I do.
Good morning. My name is Allison Young, and I am the board chair for the Southern University Foundation Board of Trustees. I want to go back to something you started talking about earlier. Two things, actually. First, you talked about the need for increase in Pell money, but that's about half of what students need to actually stay on these campuses and be successful. What about housing, textbooks, living expenses? Where are, people are more than willing to fund tuition, but those expenses are often not as readily funded. And the second question I have is about that Howard University Consortium in research. Is that already cast in stone? And is there room for other institutions to join? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. And yes, you are absolutely right. One of the things that we have currently right now, I think the Pell is about little over $7,000. We have students in here. Is the Pell $7,000? Full Pell. That's if the full Pell is close to $7,000. And we are, if you double that, that's $14,000. And most of our state institutions, it varies in terms of the incidentals. One of the things that we are focusing on at TMCF is providing those students have to get what they call from the financial aid expected family contribution and all this kind of stuff, and they look at what's coming in. And our goal is to make sure that you minimize the loans that you take out, because we don't want you to have a lot of loans. So what we do at TMCF, we try to make up the difference in terms of those dollars. We call them gap dollars or last chance dollars. And we go to our corporate partners and to make that case. And so what from the federal government standpoint, the federal dollars that's entitled would be the Pell Grant. So that's going to help reduce that amount more. But for the incidentals, that's where the fundraising come in. And that's where the opportunity comes in to help these young people so they can cross over without having any debt at the end of the day. You might have a little debt, but you'll have less debt if you can get this Pell Grant doubled. As far as the UARC, yes, that's already been locked in terms of those institutions. There's 7 HBCUs that's connected with that particular project, but there might be some sub opportunities there once they get going, but that's through the direct connection with Howard University. But if the way you find out about this project is through the Air Force, they made the announcement. If you Google Howard University, UARC, University Research Alliance, it will come up, and then there will be an avenue to reach out to the PI that's associated with that. But that was a big deal when they announced that announcement on the campus of Howard University.
Okay. We failed to mention and recognize the sponsor who has paid for all of these sessions for us for the next 2 years. The William and Flora Hewlett Foundation has provided the funding for all of our seminar series for the next 2 years. And so we're really happy about that support that we're getting from them. Just wanted to acknowledge them for their contribution and investment. All right. Question.
We have a question here.
Chair. Well, we'll take the student first, and then we'll come here.
How you doing? I'm Delone Sumo, Thurgood Marshall College Fund Yard Ambassador. I just want to tell you thank you for coming down to Southern and doing, providing us the opportunity and scholarships. I myself am a recipient of the Cream of Nature Scholarship, and I just want to tell you thank you.
You're welcome. Always love seeing our ambassadors. Let me tell y'all something about our Thurgood Marshall College ambassadors. And this is a fact, 97% of TMCF, and you had the same status that this young man just referenced, graduate from college. 97% of Thurgood Marshall College from students graduate, and that's significant.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. You mentioned a number of universities who had received an exceptional amount of money, but you didn't mention Southern.
I said Southern got part of the infrastructure for IT, $3 million. It's a law center.
Right, but you mentioned universities that got like 80 million or 45 million. You mentioned a number of them. But the other question that I had to do with, if you remove the PhDs in humanities, so are they adding something else to it? Or will that allow this university to become a research status one just by the removal?
So yes, those specific requirements will come out in a couple of weeks. But no, they're not adding anything. They're going to remove, I call it a barrier that would prohibit some of our research twos from advancing to research ones. And part of that process is a complicated process, but it's based on the number of PhDs you produce annually. And typically it's about 20 that you have to be consistent over time frame. And they have a timeline in terms of when they're going to announce the new research ones who moved up. That's going to be in 2024. So there's a runway, and we've been working with those institutions that have aspirations of wanting to move to research one, because you got to make a financial commitment internally. Institutions got to make a significant commitment. And then once you make that commitment to help build a capacity in the research arena, supporting the faculty members, supporting the departments, then that's going to open up even more avenues for this institution to be able to compete for those big grants. So what we've been able to do at TMCF in our advocacy work, we've been able to do what we call a carve out. Because when you go up against, say if you go up with a well-endowed institution that's got, billions of dollars, sometimes it's going to be hard to compete against that. But the reality, we want to kind of level the playing field, and we remind people that we're not playing in the same sandbox because you've had a head start already. Now you're going to have me to compete against someone who's already been doing this for over 50 or 60 years. So I'm saying to level those institutions out and put them in a box where you're competing with each other in a kind of honest way. So we were able to get $50 million set aside for research initiatives. The Department of Education just announced that. So schools like Southern will be able to compete against other like institutions for those dollars. And that's the piece that we've been working hard and unapologetically saying why we need to do this to help get us up to speed.
Dr. Williams, just to build upon Mrs. Johnson's question, you talked about the new philanthropic model, and specifically you gave an illustration about Mackenzie Scott's model. Can you kind of give us some insights on how that organization determines how they direct their resources in non-traditional, where you would write a proposal? That's not the option. They look at those institutions they can trust and metrics that are associated with those institutions' performance.
The Mackenzie Scott gift that those dollars, first of all, there's not a foundation that you go to. That's the first thing. These are dollars that, and everything is public, what I'm talking about. They're dollars that come from her personal net worth. And what she has identified is a philanthropic organization to look at institutions and the different types of institutions based on what they're serving. And then they have people doing, well, like for an example, I just helped her with an initiative where they're going to give $250 million to 250 nonprofits, $1 million unrestricted, to help with some of the resources. In order to be eligible for that, your revenue could not exceed $5 million. So you have to be a small nonprofit to be a part of that, because she was getting a lot of criticism about not knowing the process, not knowing how she was thinking about and how she determined who was going to get what. And to be very candid with you, that process was very secretive, and it still it created a lot of angst on campuses by saying, well, what can we do? Who do we need to get in front? How do we get in front of them? But with that particular process, she used a consulting group to help frame it out for her, and then they made their own decision. So the thing that's different about the report out, which is unheard of, is the fact that she said, I don't want a lot of paperwork coming back to me because I trust the people to give those dollars. And she looked for organizations that basically having a positive impact in communities that have been underrepresented in this country, and say that we can get dollars into the hands of those individuals, that they can use those dollars to leverage to get more dollars. We all know money attract money, right? So when you got money, you can get more money. So when you're looking at your books, people look at the revenue, how much revenue is coming in. Sometimes that will attract more people to come and be a part of that. But what she did, she challenged the existing status quo about how do you give to organizations that have traditionally have not been able to get resources from it. And it's still a battle. It's still a real battle. I know you know it. We face it all the time in terms of how we have to beg, bar, and plead, and do all these things with these organizations when we work with these program managers that they have that represent those organizations. We know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams.
Okay. Wilbur Ferdinand, I'm a trustee of the System Foundation. My question is, if there's this movement, what do you see as the biggest challenge HBCUs have in meeting the movement, taking advantage of the opportunities that exist?
I heard you say if there's a movement. That means you don't think it's a movement?
We will see.
I think from my perspective, the HBCU brand is at the highest it's ever been. And what I mean that in a positive way. And I said, when you have a president who's going to stand up before the world and they talk about what an HBCU did for them, that we've never had that. And you had a vice president who is unapologetic about her commitment to HBCUs and the fact that she graduated from one. We've never had that before. So HBCU leadership on campuses should see that as a win and as a positive win and leverage that to your advantage because people are responding. As I stated 6 years ago, when I went up on a hill, I had to explain what an HBCU is. Now, I don't have to explain anything. We were able to get a bill passed. And those of you who understand politics, how difficult it is to get a law passed, we worked Capitol Hill and you can look this up, it's called the HBCU Partners Act. That's a bill that we put through Thurgood Marshall College Fund that said we wanted every federal agency to have in their budget a line item that HBCUs can compete for. And that's into law, HBCU Partners Act. That would have never passed if we didn't have recognition of what these institutions have done in a significant way. And so I think we have a responsibility of knowing our strength and what we bring to the table, and that we can compete with anybody if you give us a level playing field. But when you throw us in there and you send these unrealistic expectations associated with things that we have been left out of. But the reality is this moment and movement that we have, because I'm singing it all over the country. I'm going all over the country talking about what HBCUs are, what we are doing for America and what we have done and what we will continue to do. Because I know firsthand that these students deserve that and these students are thriving. We're going to have a meeting next year. I'm going to say this in here. Are we recording this? Is this being recorded? Okay, I'm going to turn the recorder off. But we're going to have a meeting in Washington, D.C. This has never happened before. We're gonna do it around our fly-in, where we are inviting, and we will have the top 100 CEOs in America in a room with our HBCU presidents. That's never happened before. When you get CEOs, I'm talking about all the top 100. And the person who is the chair of the CEO Business Roundtable is Tashonda Duckett. She is the president and CEO of TIAA, African American. She has said to me personally that this is something that she's going to take on, because we just recognized her at our annual gala and gave her a CEO of the Year award, because she's not afraid to get up and talk about HBCUs and the value of HBCUs. And so by using her position, we're going to bring a group of CEOs around the table and to talk about HBCUs. We just had a convening in Washington, D.C. with Novartis. Novartis is a major world pharmaceutical company. We had a CEO of Novartis, he flew in from Switzerland to be a part of this meeting, the CEO. And it was focused on initiatives that's impacting the Black community. We signed a 10-year agreement to help Novartis have a significant impact in changing the way they work with HBCUs. We did 26 of our HBCUs signed up to be a part of this. Southern is part of this initiative to help Novartis increase the number of underrepresented students going into the healthcare arena. And they're providing scholarships, and they're providing internships, and they're providing significant resources. So when you can get the CEO of a worldwide company to come in and say, this is important, that's significant. That just doesn't happen every day. And it's all because of what is happening in our community and the positive spotlight that's on HBCUs.
Was there a question?
Thank you. Unfortunately, in our state, we just missed our opportunity to do a little bit better about the governor's office. And I'm hoping that a lot of, especially the young people who didn't vote, will find the Attorney General's election extremely important and respond to that runoff. But in difficult situations that you faced before in getting support for HBCUs in an area, can you give us some examples of some that may have happened to help us to sort of see some strategies?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happening right now, I was talking to Irvin. we were talking about what's happening right now in Florida, and we know that there's some crazy politics going on in Florida right now. But I was talking to the president of FAMU, asking him the question about what's happening, because there's been a lot of anti-Black stuff happening. And we all know this. You can't even say certain things. They're challenging the history, Black history in Florida. They're doing a lot of stuff. But that's trying to appeal, as you all know, we're not going to get into politics, but it's trying to appeal to a different audience in terms of a national audience. We all know this because it's all new stuff. But the one thing that I can say in talking to our leaders that are running the public schools, they haven't seen a significant decrease in revenue coming into their institutions from the state. And if you take that, put that in perspective, they just did what they said, they wanted to look at all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that's on state campuses and state institutions. And they asked for a record of institutions that had, and FAMU they had a program that they had a diversity equity program. I think he said it was like $3 million. And they said, we're going to cut that. So they cut it, but then they increased another budget line item by $3 million. You see the politics that's happening? So the revenue went somewhere else from that perspective. And so I think to your question about staying the course and staying focused, what I do know is that our institutions in some of our communities are the biggest economic engines in that community. And when you support that engine, you're supporting the people who live in that community. And they understand that politics. As I said, a bipartisan organization, we're very clear on who we represent and why we represent this community and the importance of making sure the resources are there. You look at what happened in Tennessee, Tennessee, they have a Republican governor, but they were able to get the General Assembly to agree to the $500 million that was owed to Tennessee State. Maryland just did the same thing. Maryland had a Republican governor, and Maryland agreed a 15-year settlement. They're fighting them for 15 years. The alumni of the HBCUs, 4 HBCUs in Maryland, they were talking about the inequities that exist in the state of Maryland, and they finally settled a lawsuit after 15 years, and a Republican governor signed it, and they $577 million is being split between 4 HBCUs, and those dollars are flowing in. I know that. I talked to the president. Those dollars are coming in, so that's real. And those are the individuals who, when you look at it, and it may be bleak, but if you keep that pressure, I think that's the most important aspect, is keep the pressure and keep reminding people that you're not doing anything for us, is you're doing what you're supposed to be doing from that perspective, because we got citizens who are in this state. So I know it can appear that way, where it can be somewhat difficult. You know, I'm reminded of Justice Marshall and hearing some of the stories in the 40s when he would take on these challenges to tear down Jim Crow. And every single case that he would take on where an African American was unfortunately mistreated in a southern state of Florida, Louisiana, you name it, and they were, lynching African Americans like crazy, and all the stuff that was happening, and when Justice Marshall, working for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and his one-man army going down and challenging the status quo and using the Constitution as that anchor and taking it apart one at a time, taking a case and getting those cases on appeal, and eventually getting to the Supreme Court in Brown versus Board of Topeka, Kansas in 1954, and overturning a law that was on the books, Plessy versus Ferguson, that set up this Jim Crow system, separate but equal doctrine. And a lot of people said, we can never turn that over. And the Supreme Court, through Justice Marshall, argued differently. And they flipped it unanimously because it just wasn't right. And I think that's the challenge that we face every day in this country, in our institutions. And that's our opportunity that I see. That's why I say this is a movement that we have. It is not a moment. This time that where we have all this positive energy focused on HBCUs and focused on students attending these institutions. We have to take advantage of that for the years to come, because we're creating opportunities for others to be able to take advantage of the rich history and legacy of historically Black colleges and universities.
Hi. Is it on? Okay. Hi, good morning. My name is Taria Dearbone. I'm a first-year MBA candidate here at Southern. I'm also a Thurgood Marshall College Fund Scholar. So we definitely wanted to say thank you so much for your contributions, as well as just Thurgood Marshall's dedication to HBCUs in this country. My question really was, I know you spoke a lot about advocacy and different things that you all have doing. Advocating that you're doing on Capitol Hill, but I wanted to know from a standpoint from like a student perspective, or just here at Southern, what are some things that we can be doing like on a daily basis, or do you have any future seminars that we can attend to kind of keep this movement going?
I love that.
We want to contribute too.
I love it. I love it. I think one of the things that we're getting ready to push, I believe this young lady mentioned it, encouraging our students to vote, to get out and vote. I mean, that's probably the most important thing that you can ever do, because it plays such a critical role in setting the future for you and the community around you and educating people about that. So we created the N. Joyce Payne Center for Social Justice. And that center, the focus in that center is getting people to understand that we're still in a social justice fight here in this country about equity. See, the affirmative action decision, it's all about, it's not a handout by any means. It is a equity issue, a fairness issue. And when we have to make that case, that's what we have to do every day, is making sure people understand, you got to treat us the way you want to be treated in a consistent way, and being unapologetic about that and being very straightforward from that perspective. So I said, so the big thing is going to be the encouraging as many of our students that we can to continue the importance of understanding to get out and vote and why you should do that.
Okay. Irving Matthews, Vice Chair of the Southern University Foundation Board. You have had the opportunity, obviously, to run an HBCU as president. In today's world, with the movement that's going on now, what would you do different in order to take advantage of this movement that's going now if you were president of one of these HBCU universities?
I tell you, the one thing that if I was still sitting in that seat, and I'm glad I'm not sitting in that seat. It was a fun seat. Gerald Peoples and we were talking about that. It was a good run, but it's a tough job. The one thing that I would do probably different, I would focus a lot of our marketing resources on the successes that we have experienced on our campuses, meaning taking full advantage of the interest in HBCUs, meaning that in addition to supporting the students, but making sure that our marketing of our institutions and the successes that we've had and getting that story out and getting out consistently and repeating it and repeating it and repeating it and being part of this drumbeat of how do we capture it, because and building on the successes associated with HBCUs and because we're part of it. We're part of it. So the HBCU community is a real community, and leveraging, people sometimes talk about, they're only, the name institutions get all the attention. Well, the reason why they became name is because they put stuff out there to keep them popular. I mean, they keep it out there, and how do you make that, and how do you leverage that? And then sometimes we don't put the resources into marketing like we should, because marketing is expensive and it takes a lot of money, and it may not see a quick return on it, but I think the leveraging that would have been my, as president, I think that's what I would have done more of, and especially this day and age, with the opportunity that we have in knowing how people feel about HBCUs. I mean, you guys, I know you're in the SWAC, and you know all the stuff that when Dion came in to Jackson State, that was all marketing. That's marketing. That's all. I mean, that's all marketing. And so if you and what did that do for Jackson State? I was just on Jackson State's campus. They got new this, new that, because people said, I just found out about Jackson State. Well, Jackson State's already been there. But it was that marketing of that he brought that positive. He didn't focus on what they didn't have. He focused on the positive of the community. And he built that up. Now, he wasn't the reason why all those people were going to games. They've always had people to go to those games. Those stadiums were big before he got there. But he just added a little flair to it, I think, that brought attention that was unprecedented for HBCUs in that segment of that piece. So I think the marketing would be the one thing that I would put a lot of time and effort in. Absolutely, 100%. That's who it would be about. It won't be about nobody else, but the alumni and what they have done and the things that they are currently doing for the community and for the institution, because people associate that. I mean, if you look at even Kamala Harris, what have they done to market her? I just watched, and I'm to tell you guys to watch this. It's a good movie on Prime TV. It's called The Barrier. It's about Jamie Foxx is playing it, and it's a lawyer who graduated from Shaw University. Yeah, get Willie Gary. He's from Florida. I mean, he's a big Florida guy. I mean, that whole thing was about, and if you go to Shaw University website right now, he's up there with Jamie Foxx. So he's just using what you have that's in a very positive light. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning, Dr. Williams. My name is Asher Spivey. I'm a student. And as students, my question is, how do we hold our university accountable for the dollars received and the dollars spent?
I think as I stated before, the one thing that the McKinsey Scott team did was it's called trust philanthropy, and trust philanthropy is giving the resources to the people and letting the leadership that's been approved to use those dollars in a way that they know what's best for the institution at that time. And when you have limited resources, you have to strategically decide on where you're going to dedicate those dollars. And it may not align with what the community may think that's best. But when you have people that's been appointed, people that's been given the authority to think like that all the time, you have to trust that those individuals are making those decisions are in the best interest of the university. And until something there's not, but I think you gotta have faith. Students have a really difficult time sometimes grasping, because your first responsibility is a student. That's your first responsibility. And then your second responsibility is to make sure that when you graduate, you're heading in the right direction and getting your opportunity after you get out. And then when you get out, then you have to, your next is to invest back into your institution. And that's another piece, right? This institution is getting you through, and it may be in some cases, hard, and that's okay, but you're gonna get through. And then when you get through, you gotta tie it back. You gotta figure out, because part of building is the continuous process of building and requiring and supporting that. And I think students have an opportunity to learn from the leadership that's here now, but when you get out, understanding the responsibility that you have to give back to your institution, which has been very, very critical and supportive of you and staying connected. I can't emphasize that enough, staying connected.
Great. Good morning. Thank you for your lecture. This has been fantastic. I'm Preston Castile. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for the Southern Foundation. I'm also a member of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. You touched on a little bit about the pipeline and what do we do to feed these HBCUs. So I want to ask a question about that. We at the Southern Foundation are in the middle of this $750 million capital campaign ourselves to strengthen the Southern University system, which is a critically important piece. But I'd like to get your additional thoughts on. I've heard from some students this morning that are current college students, but what do we do, and what is it that the Thurgood Marshall College Fund might be doing to strengthen the pipeline so that those students who qualify for scholarships that enter into to college, is there anything that's happening now that you might want to share with the group?
Yeah, I think what we are seeing and some of the things that we're doing at TMCF to support the pipeline, we are helping to create what we call alternative pathways to get to a four-year institution. As you all know, we have a large percentage of our African American students that are graduating and they're not going to college. And they're not going to college right away. As I stated, in the state of Illinois, they have a significant number of Blacks not going because they are not seeing the value of a four-year degree. And so we are working and we have created what we call the National Black Talent Bank. And that bank is designed specifically, and this was created from hearing from corporate executives about the talent that they need. And this is something that we know that is needed. I don't know if you ever heard of the 110 Project. Y'all heard about the 110 Project? It's these corporate CEOs set up to be able to hire 1 million Black in some of these companies in 10 years. It's called a 110 Project. And so without having a four-year degree. So what we are working with our HBCCs, we have historically Black community colleges that we are partnering with in the state of Alabama. There are 6 in Alabama, and I'm leaving next week to fly down to Denmark Tech to meet with Denmark Tech, which is another HBCC, because they focus on workforce development, getting people ready to go to work. So what we are hearing is that more and more organizations are looking for people who are ready to work right away. So the current structure that we are traditionally familiar with is that when you graduate from high school, you go either to the military, you go to college, or you get a job, but no real structure around that. So what at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, with philanthropic dollars that we've been able to get to stand this center up, we're focusing in on building soft skills development for high school students, getting them ready and providing them with badges. So when partners come to us and saying that they need students who are ready to go straight to work, we partner with them. For example, one company we just met with, Medtronic. It's a medical supply company that's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We met with the head of their foundation, and we met with the head of their diversity, equity, and inclusion. They said they need 10,000 students, or I say students, 10,000 people. They got 10,000 jobs. And a lot of those jobs are jobs that they will train you for, but they need people who want to work and go to work right away. But they have baked in a college track that they will pay for if you opt. You get in, some of our students do this, you get in, you realize you want to do more. So you want to do more, they got a track they'll put you on and help you pay for that. More and more companies are doing that from that perspective. So what we're doing is helping to build that pipeline for them. And we have, and what we're doing at TMCF, we're helping them with soft skills such as your resume, helping them, we do interviews with them. How do you talk when you go in for an interview? Very basic stuff that sometimes we take for granted, but when you're a high school, you haven't been trained on that. You go for your interview, you may mess up and not get the opportunity. So we're developing that. And that's an alternative pathway, because we want to make sure that our African American students are going down the right direction and getting some of these jobs that are out there, and they're well-paying jobs, I might add, that you can get right out of high school. In addition to that, we have programs that we work with where juniors and rising seniors in high school, and we work with a select group of our HBCUs to help them to understand entrepreneurship and get them start thinking about business, how to create jobs what are those real early on in the process. Those are some of the high school type initiatives that we're seeing. And all of it's based on what we're hearing some of our corporate partners saying that they need around talent development.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, my name is Arthur Jack. I'm a Southern University alum, and I'm also on the Engineering Advisory Board at Morgan State University.
All right.
And I live in the Detroit, Michigan area.
You're all over.
But I got a family legacy that's graduates of Southern, since I'm from here. So I just want to hit on this. And by the way, my son graduated. I got 4 kids. They're all HBCUs. My oldest son graduated from FAMU, and he got the Medtronic scholarship.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the process works. But he had some failures too, as my kids applying for the scholarships. So maybe what's the secret sauce there? That's something for the students, and I like to hear as a parent too. So, but I want to hit on this, and I think we kind of hit on it. You talk about this movement. Let's just call it the grassroots movement. And I think that's what Preston was kind of getting at too, because I ran for the school board in the Birmingham School District, which is in Michigan. Same conversations with the foundations there. So how do you really do that outreach, which I think you hit on? But also in the school districts, in many, there are foundations. And unless you talk to the counselors to be able to tell them about the scholarships, what all Thurgood Marshall offers, then it doesn't stick.
Right.
And I come from a school district in Michigan, one of the top 7 in the state. Very wealthy individuals of all range, not me, of course. But I'm just saying that there is an effort there that I'm not sure with my 4 kids going through the district. UNCF does a great job with it. I also run Black College tours, and I'm sure you've seen the buses come from everywhere, hitting Michigan, Morgan State, but hitting those foundations to build those connections so it's reinforced. And then 2, once students get in school, I'd like to understand from the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund and with the foundation, how do you ensure that success? I'm sure you heard universities talk about student success,
Right.
but how are you as an organization looking at that new success going forward, not just with technology, but with the opportunity? Maybe it's a HBCU survival kit. I don't know.
Yep.
You know, we all had some experiences with HBCUs, but that's what I like to find out from the foundation. How are you looking at these different avenues, pathways, using peripheral vision to ensure that success from the K-12, connecting with the school districts, public schools, and on till they graduate?
Yeah, I mean that's a big task, as you just outlined very clearly. The one thing that we have been really focused on, probably the core of TMCF, is what we call leadership development. And these students have participated in the Leadership Institute that we put on every year. And that focus is all about readiness, getting people ready for the opportunities that exist out there, and going through a series of webinars and participating and talking real talk as relates to how do you navigate this complex system that is set up not by us, but in some cases set up to block us. And so one of the things that we do is providing that toolkit that you just stated of things for them to look out for, and those kind of non-verbal things, and also those things that you need to be aware of. What I can tell you from our experience, some companies are interested in having an impact, and they track their hiring, the retention of the students who go through. And some companies that we work with, they have a razor focus on, they want to have a high percentage of the conversion to convert over. And some of them are just kind of working through, because we have to work through HR systems in some of these companies. And that's where the CEO comes into play. Because if the CEO is saying, I'm for this, then that's going to knock down all those roadblocks that you run into when you start with the HR person, because they want to do exactly what the CEO has outlined. So when we announced the partnership with Medtronic, the CEO, Jeff Marter, got on the phone. We did a Zoom. And Medtronic, they have 90,000 employees worldwide. And so the announcement was made to the whole entire company. Everybody heard it. The C-suite was on the call. Everybody was part of that. So what that signal is saying, hey, we want this program to work. So we help students by providing coaches once they arrive in, because that's so important for you to be connected with someone who's already there so they can navigate those roadblocks for you. And so we do a lot of that in preparating, and we tell companies this is what we need, and this is what our students need, because a large percentage of our students, in addition being a first student in some cases to graduate from college, a large percentage will be the first to go into corporate America. And so when you're first generation corporate, you don't know necessarily the rules of the game. So what we do is try to prepare them and getting them ready, but it's very intentional. But that pipeline piece, and as I stated earlier, we're going to make a significant investment in our marketing and to help get the message out about the direction that people are going in terms of creating these opportunities to get them interested in going to college.
So how heavy is the weight on the student success variables like graduation rates, retention rates, conversion rates, when it comes to corporations, right, and organizations determining how they're going to make investments at a university? Is it heavy towards the retention rate, the overall graduation rate, or the overall, conversion rate, and students graduate and they go into those jobs that align with workforce trends?
So most of our partners are focused on specific majors. For example, engineering majors, computer science majors, accounting majors, biology majors. So that's their focus. And in some cases, and they focus specifically on students who have thrived in those disciplines. And what we have been able to help identify, once we identify those students, the graduation rate, as I stated, it's off the chain, because those students are typically already focused. They know what they want. We're just providing an opportunity of options for them to consider. We've had CEOs who come on a call, for example, CEO of Boeing. We have a partnership with Boeing. They said, we want 100% conversion, 100%. So that means that they're going to invest. And we say, if you want 100% conversion, these are the things you got to do. For example, if you give a student who is a junior, and we got this in the contract, if you give a student who's a junior an internship, we also have them to give the student a scholarship. So when they go back their senior year, there's no excuses on them not being able to graduate, because there's someone that they've already identified that they want to convert over. And we've seen that has been a major difference and we lay all this out to our partners when we're talking about this, because we want to make sure that they do graduate and they can go directly into the workforce to support them. So this plays a critical role by major specific.
Good morning, Dr. Williams. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate the conversation. I wanted to get a little bit more into, we work in the corporate American environment. We deal with data analytics every day. We deal with forecasting. We project the future. We're dealing in the AI world today. How is the TMCF Foundation leveraging those tools, leveraging those strategies? So as we think about where we need to be in the future, we're already forecasting that, and we're creating the strategic plans to support that. And we're positioning our colleges and universities with playbooks on how to execute against that. So where do you guys play in the whole capability development as you think about historical Black colleges in that journey?
Well, it's almost like you were in our board meeting last week, because we had to lay out our 5-year strategic plan for HBCU students and our direction. And as you just articulated very clearly, it's all about data analytics and knowing exactly where you can forecast opportunities. And one of the things, and getting our institutions ready for those opportunities and communicating effectively to make sure that they are there. On every single campus that's part of our network, we have what we call campus coordinators. And they're the ones that are the people that our liaison people work with directly when they come to the campus to share about opportunities at TMCF. And so we spent a lot of time in using the appropriate systems that's out there. Best, Handshake, that's another big type of software that's important to connect students. So we're very current in those, navigating those avenues, and making sure that our students are also current with what's to expect. AI is huge. I can't even underscore AI in terms of that. We have a strong, big partnership with Google. And Google, matter of fact, we're going out to Silicon Valley to meet with Sundar, about 10 HBCU presidents. We're going out there next month to talk to him about the importance of double downing their investment with HBCUs in the research area, research capacity, and looking at the future of HBCUs. And when you can have the CEO of Google say that we want to invest in HBCUs, we have an advisory board with Sundar as the head. We have 10 HBCU presidents that's sitting around that table, talking to them and hearing from the best in class in terms of what's happening real time and what to anticipate in the future. So we take that information and we use it to communicate to all of our member institutions in a very strategic way. Yep.
All right, thank you, Dr. Williams. That was our last question. We're going to wrap up at 11. We do want to recognize our Thurgood Marshall scholars who are here with us today. And if you did not know, Southern University, representing all 5 campuses, had the largest Thurgood Marshall class this year, Thurgood Marshall Scholars Class. So at this time, I ask Terry Williams, our program, not Terry Williams, Terry Braden, our program director, to come up and give you guys some particulars and to make sure you complete your survey that is in your seat. Terry.
Well, welcome and thank you so much for you all being here today to hear everybody's tongue-tied right now. Harry Williams with Thurgood Marshall College Fund, the president and CEO. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you so much, sir. When Al introduced me to Mr. Harry, Dr. Williams, a few years ago, and said, this is an important piece of our mission here at the Valdry Center, I was excited because I knew the name, right? My daughter went to Thurgood Marshall Middle School as an honor student in the city of New Orleans, and she's doing excellently, of course, with her education and her thrive to do well. But working here with philanthropy, you learn more about that giving piece, right? So we've laid out to you all some of our last brochure. It shows where these dollars are going. The students who are receiving, you all here in the room have been recipients of the support. The Valdry Center is part of the educational component of Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We are listed there, so it's very important that you all remember when you see our emails that are inviting you all to participate in person or virtual, as we are doing today. And this is YouTubed, so it will be there for those who didn't have an opportunity to hear him. It's there for you to go back and get some resources, some data that he provided to us throughout this conversation today. But most importantly, I really appreciate you all being here. To put on an event like this with a top speaker is important to the person who's putting putting this all together and moderating this. So I really greatly appreciate this from all of you here. We had over 100 registrants for this activity. I'm not sure how many were online yet, but I know the numbers were high. So I thank you all very much for being in attendance. But before we bring up the speaker for our thank you presentation, there's some QR codes that are in your seats. It is very important for me to know how I did, how our speaker did, and just how important the Valdry Center for Philanthropy is to you all at this time. Please take a moment while I also share with you all our next opportunity, which is going to be on November the 9th. We're going to have Dr. Amir Pasek. He's the dean at Indiana University's Lilly School of Philanthropy, the first in the United States. He's going to be here. His topic is exploring the frontiers of philanthropy. So that's going to be a very, very good conversation we're going to have. We're also going to be talking with him because what we want to do is we get a lot of questions about philanthropy, and we want to begin to reach out and consort with them to bring some of that academic opportunity here as a continuing education or cross-enrollment opportunities for students as well. So thank you all for being here. And Al, presentation now, please.
All right, we want to thank Dr. Williams again for joining us today. So about 2 years ago, we commissioned an artist, local artist and now world-renowned, Terrence Osborne, to do a original piece for the university called Scotts Bluff. And it is a fine piece. The original work is hanging out in the narthex of this building. And so at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Williams to come up. And we're going to present you we're going to ship this to you, framed, right? With a signed and remarked copy of Scotts Bluff that we ask that you put somewhere that you can remember this time here at Southern University and the beautiful bluff and scenery that comes along with this painting. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really, really, really nice. I didn't share it with you guys. My son is a second-year law student here at Southern, and he loves Southern. I mean, he loves Southern. And we talk about that image over there, the bluff. So to get this and to be able to put this on I promise you, he's going to be fighting me for this, but he's not going to get it. I can tell you that right now. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that ends our speaker series today. We have lunch for everybody that's here, right? So we ask that you stay here. We're going to start serving at 11:30-ish, and it's going to be served right here in the room where breakfast was served earlier. But we ask that you stay for that if you have time. And please, like Terry asked you to do, consider participating in our next speaker series with Dr. Amir Pasek from Indiana University. Thank you again for coming out and have a great day.